everyone, and welcome to this new Blossom Crochet tutorial. In this video I will be showing you how to do this beautiful crossover stitch. So this is a scarf that I've completed already using this stitch, and I will leave the link down below for the yarn that I use. This is obviously a variegated yarn, and I was going to use it for the tutorial but I changed my mind on that. But I wanted to show you what a complete project would look like. And then I've added on some tassels for the end, obviously. So this stitch is completely reversible, so you can see it is the same on both sides. You get this lovely crossed over stitch at the bottom here, which adds some beautiful texture as well. And so if you were doing a scarf or something, just very quickly, I'll just tell you, you can obviously do it two ways. So I did my foundation chain to be the length of the scarf so that I worked my stitch up to be the width. Or if you wanted to, like in my sample piece here, you could do a shorter foundation chain and work the rows of your scarf up to create the length. It's completely up to you. So I really hope that you like the tutorial, and remember to subscribe now to keep up to date with all of the future videos. But for now, let's just crack on with this crossed over stitch. Okay, so obviously, as much as I love that beautiful variegated yarn that I used for my daughter's scarf, it's not the best for a tutorial. So I'm just going to be using this plain cotton, and I will link down below for where you can buy it from if you want it. And obviously you can use absolutely any yarn and any size hook that it recommends. You can use this pattern with absolutely anything. So to start off with, you want to create your foundation chain for whatever length or width you require, as long as it's a multiple of 4. So I've got a chain of 20 here, obviously, because I'm only doing a small sample piece. So once you have got to the size that you require, you need to add on an additional 3 chains. So 1, 2, and 3. And now this first row is very simple. We are simply going to do a row back along of UK double crochet. So in the US, this is obviously your single crochet. So we're going to go into the second chain from the hook. So you never count the one on the hook. And then you've got 1 and 2. So insert your hook, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both. And again into the next chain stitch, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through both. And you're going to do that all the way along, so I will meet you at the other end in just a second. I'm just completing my final double crochet, and that is my first row worked. Now don't worry if it's all curly like a little pig's tail, that is absolutely normal, and it will flatten out after the next row. So we're now ready to move on, and you can do this two different ways. So you can either chain 3 and turn if you wish, or I prefer to do it this way so that we don't get any huge gaps, and also I prefer the chunkier looking stitch that we get this way. So I've turned my work without chaining anything, and then into this very first stitch here where your working end is coming up from, you're going to insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull up, and then yarn over, pull through both, and then you've got 2 vertical loops here, and you're going to go through that loop, and then you'll yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and that just gives us a chunkier looking stitch than if we'd just done a chain 3. So now we're going to move on to the proper pattern itself. So you want to skip a stitch. So we've worked into this one, and you're going to skip this next stitch, and then into the one after you're going to do a treble crochet. So remember, I'm working in UK terms, so in the US this is your double crochet, and you want to make sure that you work through the whole of the stitch. So you want to make sure that you get the whole of that V on the top. So as I said, miss 1 stitch, and into the next you're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 1 treble. You're also going to do a treble into the next 2 stitches. So again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and 1 more into the next stitch. So you'll have 3 trebles next to each other. So this is the stitch now that you might find a little bit fiddly at first, but trust me, it does get easier the further on that you get. Your hands will get more used to doing it. So you'll remember that we skipped 1 stitch back here. So we're now going to do a treble into that stitch that we missed. So you're going to yarn over, and then you're going to go back to that stitch that you missed, and you'll insert through the stitch. Like I say, it can be a little bit fiddly, and then you'll yarn over as normal and pull up. Keep it relatively loose, and you want to pull that stitch up so that you're at the same height as your other stitches. Yarn over, pull through 2 as normal, and yarn over, pull through 2. And that just gives us this little wrapped around stitch. So now again, we are going to skip a stitch, but just be careful at this point that you don't mess up the skipping of stitches. You want to make sure where that last treble went into before we did our back treble, our treble that went that way. You will be able to see the final stitch that your other treble went into. So just make sure you look for that so that you know where to start skipping your stitch from. So you can see I've got my treble coming out from this stitch here, so I know I've worked into that one. So I'm going to skip this one, and then I'm going to start my next 3 trebles from here. So skip 1, and then 1 treble into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. And then again, we're going to go back to this stitch here that we missed. So yarn over, go back to that stitch and insert, yarn over and pull up, and again pull it up nice and tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So you've now got 2 clusters of cross stitched. And again, check where your final stitch was that you have worked. Always check to see which one the treble is coming out from, because it will lean one way, so it can get quite confusing. So you can see I've worked into that stitch there already, because you can see my trebles coming up from it. So I'm going to skip this next one, and then again we're going to do 1 treble into the next 3 stitches. And 2 and 3, and then again we're going to go back to the one here that we skipped. So yarn over, go through that stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So you've now got your 3 clusters. So you're going to continue that all the way along, and I will meet you as you get back towards the other end in just a second, and we will finish off this row. So I'm now getting towards the end of my row. I've done my final set of 3 trebles here, and obviously I've got my skipped stitch that I'm going to work into, but I just wanted to show you how this end bit should be looking at this point. So you should be able to do your last 3 trebles, and then we'll work our back cross treble in just a second. But you can see you should still have this very final last stitch here that you can work into in just a minute. So I'm going to do my last backwards treble to this stitch. This last one can be a little bit fiddly because that end bit can sometimes get in your way. So I've done my last crossed treble, and then into this very final stitch just here on the very end you're going to do a treble. So just one treble into that final stitch. So that is how you should be looking at this point. You should have your row of double crochet and then your first row of the cross-stitched clusters. So now we want to turn again, and then into this very first stitch where your working end is coming up from, we're going to do a double crochet. So simply insert your hook, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through both. And I find that's just nicer than chaining one, because when you just chain one it can sometimes be really hard to find the stitch when you get back to the other end in a minute. So if you do it that way you get this really nice clear V stitch there that I can work into when we get back at the end of the next row. So this row now is very simple. We are simply going to do one double crochet into each stitch along. So obviously you've worked your first one into this stitch, so then into the next you're just going to do one double crochet, or single in the US, remember, all the way along. So into the top of every single stitch you will put a double crochet. So you can see I'm just getting towards the other end now, and I've worked my double into the top of that final treble that's in our cross stitch cluster. And so now I know that I've got one last stitch to work into here. So one double into that very end stitch. And you can see your edges should stay really nice and straight with this method. And then again we're ready to do a row of the cross stitches. So you're going to turn your work, and then we're going to create our stitch for this first one here. So insert your hook in that stitch again, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through both, and then you've got your 2 vertical stitches and you're going to go through that end one, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2. And then again we're going to do our little cross stitches in the exact same way as before. So we're going to skip this first stitch and then one treble into the following 3 stitches. So 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to do our cross treble back to the stitch that we missed. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then again check where your last treble was, skip 1 and 1 treble into the next 3. So it's exactly the same as before. So I will leave you to do that, and I will meet you as you get towards the end doing your last cluster, and we will just firm up placement of those final stitches. I'm back towards the end here. I'm going to do, so I've done my final 3 trebles into those stitches. You can see I've got 1 stitch there left to work into in a minute, but I need to complete my final crossover treble into that missed stitch. And then into that very final stitch you can see we've got a nice clear V to work into. So you're going to do your treble into that final stitch, and that is how we are looking now. So it's a really nice little texture that you get, and it's reversible as well, which is great. So that is literally the gist of the pattern. So now you would complete another row of double crochet. So if you're needing to, you can obviously pause or rewind the video, but it is just that 2-row repeat. Now when it comes to finishing your project, if you want it to mirror the bottom or the beginning of your project, then you are going to want to finish on one of the rows of the double crochet, not the row of your clusters. And then that way you'll have the same at the bottom as you do at the top. So I really hope that you like this crossover stitch as much as I do, and remember to give the video a quick thumbs up and to subscribe if you don't already, but I will see you for another tutorial very, very soon. But thanks as always for watching. Bye.